Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Grandma Has ADHD, the podcast where we explore what it means to discover ADHD later in life. And trust me, we share some laughs, some insights, and sometimes a little too much information. I'm your host, Jami Shapiro, and whether you're newly diagnosed, just starting to connect the dots, or you've been on this journey for a while, you're in the right place. Each week, I sit down with incredible guests, coaches, advocates, therapists, and fellow ADHDers who understand what it's like to navigate this beautifully chaotic ADHD brain of ours. And hey, if you like what you hear today, I'd love for you to join the Sparkler Society. It's a space where you can navigate ADHD with others who are new to discovering it too, because nobody should have to figure this out alone. So grab your coffee or whatever keeps you focused today, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Ever wondered why helping a loved one declutter feels like speaking different languages? I did, especially with my mom. It wasn't until I founded Silver Linings Transitions, helping San Diego seniors organize and move for over a decade, that I discovered why. We all experience clutter differently, and for those of us with ADHD, it's a whole other world. If you are listening in the San Diego area and feeling stuck with moving, paperwork, photos, or home organization, our team at Silver Linings Transitions gets it. We understand ADHD's unique challenges, and we won't just help you get organized. We'll create sustainable systems that finally stick. Schedule a consultation with our team today at 760-522-1624. That's 760-522-1624, or find us at silverliningstransitions.com. Hello, and get ready to meet someone who's been in the ADHD trenches for over 2 decades. Our guest today founded the ADHD clinic in Austin back in 1999, transforming it into the Life Empowerment Center, a vibrant hub for adult ADHD treatment, executive coaching, and family therapy. With experience spanning psychiatric hospitals, prisons, and treatment centers, he's seen ADHD from every angle. When COVID hit in 2020, he didn't just adapt, he thrived. Embracing his ADHD love of shaking things up, he pivoted to a flexible teletherapy practice, now connecting with clients across time zones and continents. And here's the ADHD twist. He lives with his wife, Edie Bidem, who's also an ADHD life coach. So you can imagine their whole household is never boring. Between collecting custom boots, baseball caps, and his latest shiny obsession, glass beads, plus running the Austin's Green Belt and cheering on Texas sports, he's living proof that ADHD adults can build rich, adventurous lives. Please welcome to the Grandma Has ADHD podcast, James Ochoa. Woo!
That's a mouthful there, Jami.
I love it. So thank you for coming on and agreeing. And just so that you all can hear, James is not a grandma.
No, he's not.
Do you play one on television?
Nope, don't play one on television. And maybe I'll be a grandpa one day, but that isn't not in the cards at this point.
Sure. So just so that you know, I gear this to really women 50 and over,
Great.
But a lot of times, I'm not a grandma, although I'm over 50, but we like to hear from men too, because you guys have a lot to contribute to the ADHD conversation. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of my audience are actually people who are just discovering that they may have ADHD. As I share, I don't diagnose anybody. But I do know that it's an awakening when you put these pieces together for your life. So I always like to ask my guests if you could share your own ADHD journey and then tell us a little about the work you do.
Well, it's a great topic, and yes, I've been around this for decades, and I've seen it from all angles. I came to the table with I didn't know I had ADHD until 1996. I had already been working 5 or 6 years in the field. I did have a closed head injury as a child at 4 years old, which I had associated a lot of my learning differences with.
Mm.
And so, with that in tow, in 1996, I was actually buying a clinical diagnostic tool for diagnosing ADHD, which I had a very difficult time doing a computerized test. And unannounced to me in that difficulty, I went to the developer. I'm like, this is not easy for me. And we were looking it over, and suddenly became a lot of the lights came on for myself regarding my adult ADD issues and what I had grown up with, and understanding that genetics were on my mother's side of the family. They were very clear on that side of the family. And so, like many of adults with ADHD, we come at the recognition in our adulthood because of some event, some
Mm-hmm.
career issue, something like me as a professional. Suddenly I'm working with it because, I've been working with children since 1989 with ADHD, and then started working with adults in drug and alcohol treatment in 1992. So I'd been around for several years, but understanding my own diagnosis really began to enlighten me, certainly as a professional, on how to manage that. And so, you know, I'm now 64 years old. I don't feel 64 years old. I love who I am and I love what I do. And, how I got to where I was, I say, Jami, is very organic. As I said, I started working with children in 1989, but I kept running into challenges and problems that didn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
So early 90s, right, we had behavior modification and we had medication essentially. By the mid 90s, it was clear to me we had to educate people with ADHD about what was happening to them neurologically, how their brains developed.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had to talk about mindfulness because their minds were so active and restless. Then we had to start to deal with, and really my calling card in the field is the emotional and mental stress of ADHD.
Mm.
So I coined a term in 2004 called the emotional distress syndrome, or the EDS of ADHD, which is all the emotional and mental stress that spins off of the diagnosis and doesn't go away, but really erodes your character, your self-esteem, your identity. And we had to figure out what to do with that. And it was really, I talk about it, Jami, as a clinical failure, in my opinion, as a therapist, that I couldn't help my clients pass this emotional and mental stress until I began to really look at it as a chronic issue. And
Mm-hmm.
most people didn't want to see ADHD as a lifelong chronic issue, even in 2005, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So now I talk about it, yes, it's a chronic issue that can be managed, and you can learn to resource yourself around the emotional and mental stress of ADHD, and you can learn mindfulness skills. You can be incredibly powerful and reach your potential. And I've worked with many adults, many women who are postmenopausal. That's another big issue within ADHD, causing lots of challenges. And, they begin to discover it and how they can begin to manage it effectively. So I have come to this organically and continue to find answers. My first book, Focus Forward, about the emotional and mental stress, really opened up that spectrum and what to do with it in 2016. And I'm planning on a publication date for a second book called When the Shiny Wears Off,
Mm.
because when all the stress and all the details and it's still hard, what do you do now to keep up with it all? So, yeah, I am a clinician steeped in this space. I love the title of your podcast because we don't talk a lot about the aging issue within ADHD and what to do with it. And so I'm so glad you're getting this information out there.
I appreciate that. And what I'm finding is that, what? I just had an ADHD moment on you, James.
Oh, well, that would happen here.
You know exactly what, how that is. So I am going to collect my thoughts, and we're going to take a pause so I can get it, because I don't want to keep going until I've got it, because then it's just going to distract me.
Absolutely.
But I do want to share another thing as I was listening to you, and I absolutely want to talk about the emotional stress, because a lot of our audience, they've been beating themselves up their whole life. They don't even know. They didn't even know they had ADHD, and now all of a sudden they're interweaving that awareness of ADHD with this, with the life that they've thought and who they, and so that's a big one that I definitely want to come back to.
Great.
but I want to give you a squirrel moment too, because I keep it very real. So James, first of all, you're James, I'm Jami. We're both sitting in corners of a room with a cream chair. So like that's a very ADHD thing to do, where you've got all of these other senses and things going at you at one time. So
yes, they are. Yes, they are. With the chair behind you and the pictures behind you and the very personalized space. Mine's a very personalized space. Super important. Here are the beads. You were talking about those earlier. I've gotten lost in them. So yeah, we're very authentic in our model in treating ADHD.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So we're going to pause, which I would normally do anyway in the podcast. I just pick a different time. And so this is as good a time as any. But I do want to also come back with a question that I always ask my guests. And so when we come back, I'm going to ask you if you could press the ADHD button and have it go away, like the Penn Holderness talked about that in last year's ADHD conference. I want to know if you get rid of your ADHD, but I don't want you to answer that question yet. And if you are listening to this podcast and you are enjoying it, I hope that you will share it with your friends, that you will like it and you will subscribe to it. And I'm really, really excited, James. This is the first podcast interview that I've done since I have started the Sparkler Society. So this is something that's going to be starting in January. So we're taking names for the waiting list now. And the Sparkler Society is all about women who have lived this whole life not knowing why they felt too much, had too much, were called too much. And we're tackling the challenges of ADHD in a community setting with accountability. We're tackling the ADHD tax because, like, to your point, really not addressing I remember what I was going to say. I knew I would. We're still going to take the break. I'm going to write it down this. But anyway, we're addressing the ADHD in later life when you don't have the scaffolding of work and and you need something when you don't have that structure. So we're going to come right back. I'm going to take a pause, take a sip of my tea, and we'll be right back. You know that voice in your head, the one that's been asking, "What's wrong with me?" for decades? What if I told you there's nothing wrong with you? What if everything you've been beating yourself up about, the clutter, the forgotten appointments, the impulse purchases, the half-finished projects, what if it all makes sense? That's why I'm introducing the Sparkler Society, a community designed specifically for women like us, women who've spent decades feeling too much and not enough at the same time. This isn't another unused or forgotten subscription. This is weekly decluttering sessions with accountability, body doubling sessions working virtually side by side with other people on unfinished projects, a craft swap to trade those abandoned projects guilt-free, and real strategies to save more than $250 a month on what we call the ADHD tax. And most importantly, it's a place to feel seen and understood. We're opening our doors to founding members in February, and we're inviting you to try everything for just $17. You'll get full access to every group feature, including our craft swap and treasure chest community pages. Then in March, you decide which features you want to keep or simply walk away if it's not your fit. The Sparkler Society is a place where your too much is just right. Visit jamieshapiro.me to become a founding member before February 28th and try all of our features for $17 until March 1st. It's time to stop apologizing for who you are and start shining. Moving can feel overwhelming, whether you're downsizing, relocating, or helping a loved one transition. There are so many decisions to make, details to handle, and emotions to navigate. At Silver Linings Transitions, we believe every move should be magical, not stressful. We're more than movers. We expertly guide you through the entire process and do our best to alleviate your concerns. From the moment we meet, you'll feel comfortable because we will listen to your needs and wants and work together to create a personalized plan that honors your memories and your cherished belongings while helping you embrace your next chapter. When selling your home is part of the journey, you may be eligible for free move services when we refer you to one of our trusted realtor partners throughout San Diego and the surrounding area. With a decade of experience working as a realtor myself, I guide our clients through the process of screening and hiring their perfect fit realtor. Then our team professionally stages your home to showcase its best features and maximize its value. We visit your new space and create a detailed floor plan, ensuring your furniture and treasured belongings will fit safely. We handle the logistics, so you don't need to worry about anything, from sorting and packing to coordinating the sale and donation of unwanted items. Our professional team uses efficient, eco-friendly bins and handles every detail with care. We coordinate with our vetted moving partners, oversee the logistics, and ensure nothing is left behind, even packing your refrigerator items. Here's where the magic happens. We don't just unpack, we recreate the feeling of home. Using photos from your previous space, we thoughtfully arrange your furniture, hang your pictures, and set up your kitchen and bathroom so everything feels familiar from day one. When you walk into your new space, it's not just moved in, it's home. Your coffee pot is ready, your favorite photos are perfectly placed, your bed is made, and your new chapter begins with comfort and joy instead of chaos. This is how Silver Linings Transitions makes moves magical. We handle the emotional lifting and the logistics so you can focus on what matters most, settling into your new home. Because every move deserves a silver lining. So we are back with James Ochoa. And if you heard me choke, you totally heard me lose a thought. It happens all the time. And of course, I apologized to James. And he said, oh, that's what editing is for. And I said, oh, we don't edit on this podcast. My thoughts are, I don't do life on hard mode. I need to keep things as easy as possible. And that would be one more thing that would keep me from getting this content out. And so very much perfect is the enemy of done. And to your point, we are very, very authentic people, which is also, I have to tell you, James, when I ask someone if they have ADHD, I first tell them, this is perhaps the biggest compliment I can give you. So,
yes.
So having said that, I have a couple questions, and we are going to go back to the original point. So would you push the button, the ADHD button? Would you not have it?
You know, I wish it was a simple yes or no question, right? It's impossible. And for certainly a neurodivergent ADHD mind is not going to answer it in a yes or no way.
No.
I have seen those who don't have it, and they live happy, content lives as well. So if I didn't have it, would I live a happy, content life? Yes, I think I would. Okay. Because I have it, I live an adventurous, fun living life in which yes, there's challenges and stress, but the level at which I gather stories and adventure and fun, to me, is just multifaceted, multi-level. So no, I wouldn't change any of my life course. Absolutely not. That would be silly. And I don't know if you saw the work way back in the 90s from, and I believe it came out of the book, You Know I'm Not Lazy, Crazy, or Stupid by Kate and Peggy Peggy Ramundo and Kate Kelly. But they talked about the ADHD gene being removed from society and what would happen, right? And 20 years later, they're having a conference going, well, we think it's a good idea to put it back in, but we don't have anyone with the gene to help us, essentially. So, I mean, that's been around. I mean, that thought process is so real, isn't it? If I could push that button, do I think, because you're not going to take away the magic. You're not going to take away, you're still going to be frustrated with human conditions for different reasons. So I'd much rather have my condition than anything else. Absolutely. No, I would not push the ADHD button.
Love it. Love it. And you're right, that acceptance, just like, and that's one of the parts of this podcast, is it's not rehearsed. It's kept very real, because when I am an authentic person in a space of other people, then that gives other people permission to say, oh, she's doing it and I'm not judging her. So I love how you I think that's been the best answer to the question. And I have to tell you that there's only been one person so far who also works as an ADHD coach who said he would push the button.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It is interesting, but no one says yes or no. I mean, that's just Right. Okay. So here were a couple questions that I had for you. So I have never had a partner with ADHD, and you are married to someone. So
Hmm.
I would love if you could share a little bit about a relationship with two ADHD people. Do you sort of one of you take turns being the filter, or how does that work?
Well, so my wife does not have ADHD.
Oh, I thought she did.
No, no, no. She's got some learning differences on a language spectrum,
Hmm.
but she does not. But I've had many couples, JB, who both have ADHD.
Sure.
And the reality is, you get a lot of patterned disruptions that you have to learn to manage.
Mhm.
With my couples, I'm always asking them about what is your appreciation and gratitude meter like within your relationship, which is basically how much are you appreciating and being grateful for your partner in the smallest of ways.
Mhm.
I think that's an elixir for couples to keep their relationship connected, because the stress of today's world will push us apart at any given moment. Okay, we can blame, fight,
Mhm.
victimize each other, victimize ourselves, shut down. We can do these 10,000 things that never are going to be helpful to the health of a relationship.
Mhm.
So for me, appreciation gratitude meters are one of the key elements that my wife and I live within, outside of business meetings, as I would call them, couples business meetings, where we consistently check in with each other. And my wife is a great list producer, so that's very helpful. And I'm a
Mhm.
great driver and a doer, right? So I'm like,
Mhm.
just get out of my way and I can clean the kitchen in 10 or 15 minutes versus someone else's 30 or 45 of meandering. It's just like, I
Mhm.
can be very task oriented. So, yeah, learning, living with learning differences within our marriage has been certainly challenging. But we have two beautiful sons at 34 and 30 years old. Our oldest has ADHD, hyperactive, impulsive type, and very, very successful. I write about him in my book, Focus Forward. Very successful computer engineer living in Brooklyn. And our youngest son had dyslexia as a child, and it was remediated for a great degree.
Wow.
He's in the UX research field, but it was remediated because we intervened early on it with his learning tools and abilities. So he has all these compensation spaces, and incredibly gifted writer now in
Mhm.
those spaces. So, yes, authenticity, family living as a community, respect for each other. I could talk for days about how that happens in a relationship. And yes, I've been married 36 years, going on 37 years. It's a constitution to me, which means that outside of overt abuse or harm toward me or me toward someone else, in this case, my relationship, I'm not going anywhere. It's not
Mhm.
about the other person. It's about
Mhm.
me taking care of myself and them taking care of their self.
Mhm.
And so if you have that constitution, you have a partnership long term.
Hmm. Well, I have to share something that, it's wonderful to have this podcast because I continue, even though I've gone through ADHD coaching, I learn constantly. And I learned about recognition euphoria.
Hmm.
And I am that person who has always sought validation. And
Hmm.
I know that it's really annoying to my partner and to
Hmm.
my children. But when I learned, I mean, like a week or two ago about recognition euphoria,
Hmm.
that, plays into why it would be so important to hear those kind words from your
Excellent.
partner and that validation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And by the way, let's just twist that into you as an individual self, right? We talk about the emotional mental stress being so disruptive on the ADHD spectrum.
Mhm.
Can you create a relationship with yourself that creates your own recognition euphoria? Okay. Can you look at a mirror? Can you have a discussion with yourself in a real way that's not breaking some schizophrenic or reality testing boundary? It's actually one of the things I've been playing with this year is a lot of mirror work, a relationship with myself. So I
Mm.
wonder, could we get recognition euphoria for ourselves? I think we can. I think we
Mhm.
can. I think we can get past the distress of it all.
So I'm going to share a quick thing, and I absolutely think the first thing people should do, and I talk about this in my own book, that you've got to get kind with that voice in your head.
Yes,
That's got
absolutely.
to be someone that you
Right.
have as a friend. But I have to tell you that every time I'm on my yoga mat or I go to the gym, I'm like, I'm proud of you, Jami. I mean, I
Good.
really say it every time.
Good.
So
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yes.
So that leads me to this. When you and I can't remember how you encapsulated your term, but one of the biggest things that I'm finding in the space that I'm working in is the grief and the relief of discovering the ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to use my mom. I mean, she is my avatar. She is the OG, the original grandma behind this whole thing, because I knew I had ADHD for 8 years and didn't think much of it when my child was, by the way, my oldest child has ADHD and lives in Brooklyn, New York, and is a
there you go.
And is a drag king. Talk about using their creativity.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, my child's brilliant, but
That's great.
That's another squirrel. But that my mom, who was really bright, but really did not finish college, jumped from job to job, lots of incompletes in her life. And actually, I've talked about it really openly about our relationship and how damaged it was because we were both so disappointed with each other. We both had that rejection sensitivity. And then when I realized that my mom had ADHD all of these years and that I was just one of those people, one more person beating down on her, it just completely transformed our relationship. But so when I speak about that, then I'm also, there are a lot of people listening that are coming to this conversation, and there is, like, how do you manage that? You know, how do you, what is your advice?
In managing kind of the understanding of ADHD or not having known about it and the recognition. Yeah.
All of it. It's all of, because there's a lot. I mean, there is grief and there is relief, right?
Well, there is. And I talk about this emotional wave of grief that happens with recognition, particularly for adults who are diagnosed in their adult life, that it's very natural for us to immediately go to a grief response of what if something had happened, being angry about it, right? Being sad and depressed about it. And I say that's okay. Pass through those spaces, okay? But honor them because they were your life also. So there's a perspective I carry called mining the gems of your life history. And the idea of mining the gems of your life history would say that you look back at that life history, okay? And you begin to ask yourself, Jami, what's the experience I took? What's the knowledge? What's the wisdom? What's the hope? Okay? What are the things I took from those times? Because if we can mine those gems of our life history, then what we do is we start to weave our fabric, right, of our life history in a more congruent way. It becomes less of a trauma distress and more of an adventure and a story. Mine is full of it. Okay, I am full of resilience and just not giving up. And so many of us with ADHD have that, right? You can knock me down, but you can't keep me down. All right. And I will always get up. And so to me, taking that grief response and learning to thread it and start seeing them as gems of your life history. What did I take away? Who am I now as a result of it? I can powerfully tell you my story, of tantruming when I'm 5 years old and pick up a dining room table on my back. And I was the 7th out of 8 kids. And so there's a lot of kids around the table because I was so mad. Nobody's paying attention to me. The passion of that little 5-year-old tantruming is the same passion I have 36 years later of treating ADHD and not walking away from it. Okay. The sensory deprivation tank, I had at 8 years old in floating in a tub of water when I was taking a bath so I could get away from the chaos of my family, is just a brilliant way of going back and grabbing life history that I could certainly be ashamed and embarrassed about because, oh my God, how weird was that? Or here's this little tantruming kid. No, they're powerful stories. So you take grief and you roll it into your story in a way that's powerful. What do you do for many adults who say, I've lost my potential? I'm 45 years old, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'll never get it back. I'm like, there's always potential within you lying ahead of you. What are you going to do next? Some of your most incredible years could be lying ahead of you, and it could be that all this resilience and everything that happened, you're going to move it forward in a way you could never have understood before. Keep working to make sense of your life history, because psychologically, if anything else, it keeps you a whole lot calmer and a lot more engaged in the game, and it keeps you off the victim approach, right? It's not like,
Absolutely.
So does that help? I mean, that's how I weave that process.
That was beautiful. And first of all, one of the things that they say is wonderful about ADHD is our natural tendency towards curiosity, which is
Mhm.
also one of the things that helps us age better. And
Absolutely.
so I want to point that out as it, but are you familiar with the term gerotranscendence?
No, not
Okay,
yet.
you're gonna love this. So I studied to become, or I am, a certified senior advisor. And while
Hmm.
taking this class,
Hmm.
I learned about Erik Erikson developing a ninth stage. So he was a famous sociologist, had the eight
Yes,
stages of life.
absolutely.
Well, when he got into his 80s, he and his cohort, his friends, his wife, realized that they had sort of missed a part. And that is identified as the ninth stage or gerotranscendence, which is exactly what you're talking about, mining your
Hmm.
life, which is when you are making peace. You're making
Yes,
peace with your life, with your
yes.
relationships. And I think that understand. So I have had people say to me, and especially when I started this podcast, why does it matter? Why does it matter, that you're
Hmm.
50, 60, 70 years old discovering you have ADHD? I'm like, are you, and I know it's transformed my life. I mean, so
Yeah,
we share
right.
that passion. But can you imagine if you are now reflecting on your life and you've been beating yourself up your entire life, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. I was going into the bathtub to adapt to an environment.
Yes,
Like, how
yes,
brilliant was I?
yes. Right, right. And so this, because when you discover that brilliance from back then, guess what? That brilliance is still with you. It's still
Mhm,
carrying you forward. And so
mhm,
it's been threaded. And so it suddenly becomes this incredibly strong muscle memory of
mhm,
kind of who you have, who you are, and who you're becoming. And I
mhm,
love that idea, from Erickson, which I love his work from a psychological study point of view,
mhm,
that in the golden years or I knew someone she's close to 90 now, but way back when she was in her 60s, in the 90s, she would say she was consciously aging. She's aware of who she is and what her age is and how she's moving, and she was consciously aging. Well,
love that one.
I just, yeah. And, so here's a funny story, Jamie. It's my 60th birthday. I'm 64 now. So this is 4 years ago. Someone
Mhm,
asked me, how old do you want to live to be?
mhm,
And if you know anything about me, I'm a numbers guy and I like playing with numbers. And so 11 is a great number.
mhm.
So I said, oh, I want to live to 111 because it's just fun. And at my 111th birthday, I want to wave goodbye to everyone. And by that time, I'll probably be able to choose to transition out of here or not if I want to. But I want to attend my own going away party.
Mhm.
And it's like, why not dream? So I said that as kind of a hyperactive impulse in a fun conversation with someone at my 60th birthday. Well, what does it do for me? It creates this little toehold in my belief system of myself and regarding self care, regarding meditation, regarding strength training and working out. Things have been so much more dynamic the last 4 years.
Mhm,
I think because I have this little bitty toehold. Well,
mhm,
that's what we do with ADHD, right? We find these little passions and toeholds in a way that make such a grand way of how we can live our life. So many of us with ADHD, though, right? We just shudder from that. We just shrink. And as you were saying, being kind to yourself is one of the most critical pieces of
mhm,
being compassionate.
mhm,
And it's a wonderful world to live in.
mhm. I love it. And by the way, I have also put my age out there. Um, Mine is 101 because
Nice.
I want to have a great 100th birthday party and I want to get through that year. And my partner is 9 years younger than I am, and
Yeah,
we were talking about it yesterday. Actually, we were
yeah.
talking about how he doesn't really want to make it to his 90s. I'm like, oh come on, you got to make it to your 90s because I don't want to be a widow that long.
Well, it's one of those pieces, right? It gives you something to look
I
forward
love
to
it.
in a way that's meaningful for you. And that personal meaning is what really tows us forward on the ADHD spectrum to staying connected with who we are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to tell you, I mean, I enjoy pretty much every interview, but I really
Hmm.
am enjoying this one. It's amazing. So I've got a question for you, and this
Sure.
is not one that you were prepared to answer, but you mentioned that you came from ADHD through your mother's side. Do you
Yeah.
now, looking back at your childhood, because I'm sure your mother was not
Yes.
diagnosed with ADHD, if
No.
I'm right?
No.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think whether my mother had ADHD is a question. She has certainly had a very high IQ. And I know that for certain. She was a woman in 1952. She owned 2 cars, was the head secretary in an insurance agency. And because of cultural social norms, when she got married, she quit her job,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and was at home to have children. Well, she had 7 kids in 8 years after that, which is just like an insane life story of mine. And so within that thread of my family, I'm absolutely certain that at least one, if not two, of my aunts, one of my beautiful Aunt Julie, who no longer is with us, she had a little sign on the back of her stove that said, "The hurrier I go, the behinder I get." And it was just her. She was just a little spark plug. She was a nurse, and she was an incredible nurse, and she was constantly hyperactive and running around. And so I know it was in my family. I have a funny story I tell on my father. So my mother's side of the family, her last name was Kane, and my grandfather clearly had pieces of it. But I had someone that I knew in another state with the same last name who was an adult with ADHD. And so I could follow that lineage from like 5 family systems back through Louisiana and Mississippi. And actually, my mother's maiden name is on the founding fathers of in Jamestown. So I could go to Jamestown and be one of the founding fathers. So genetics, absolutely, I've seen it. I love to talk the genetic picture because to me, it's hair color, height, and weight within the ADHD spectrum. And as many people may have characteristics of it, it may never birth itself as a diagnosis, as I say, depending on the support you have around you. But unfortunately, like with Russell Barkley and how much of the research he shows on the detriment of this, so many of these people with ADHD are living sub-living lives. They're in prison. They're homeless. It's a very difficult issue. But we still only think, what, 20% maybe at best actually know they have the neurological
Yes.
difference?
Can you
Okay.
imagine 80%
No,
of people? Yes.
they're
Crazy.
walking around. And so, unfortunately, how many of them are disheveled and how many of them are high flying, powerful people? And like I say, if you only have 1 or 2 or 3 of the characteristics on the spectrum of diagnosis within ADHD, those 1, 2, or 3 characteristics could really cause you challenge in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, mild, moderate, severe degrees of diagnosis, it doesn't matter. You still have to learn how to manage it.
I agree. And I cannot stand when I have somebody say, oh, they are so successful or they're so smart, they can't have ADHD. And I'm like, no, they're probably hid their ADHD, but it's very
Yeah, they
common.
probably masked it for many years in ways you would never know, but go behind the scenes and,
And
it's hanging around.
And I'm going to suggest that anyone who has 7 or 8 kids might have ADHD. I mean, that's someone who likes to keep things going. And I have to share with you one more thing. That expression, that hurrier I go, the behinder I get, that is like my life. We hosted a Hanukkah party last
There we
night,
go.
and my partner is a scientist. So he's about as slow moving and methodical, which drives me crazy. And he will say, when you don't finish the steps, and I realize now, like for me, it's done. He's like, we've already gone this far. Why not finish it? Right. But I'm constantly rushing. And now I know, he's like, are you going to, rush through this to take this 1 minute to take yourself 20 more minutes to clean up the mess because you couldn't slow it down? So I wrote that one down. I'm going to get a sign that says that. That's
that would be a great honor to my Aunt Julie from years ago. And that pause method, it's one of the things, right, with the underactive nature of our prefrontal cortex. It's one of the pieces, and Barkley talked about this way back in the 90s. We don't evaluate that space of that pause as naturally. And so how do you put that pause into your life as easy as drinking water or taking a breath or going to sleep? I say you have to move it to a Maslow hierarchy of need of food, water, and sleep. And pausing is one of those. Curiosity and observation. You were saying earlier, curiosity it pulls the brain out of gear and slows us down. Well, that's mindful meditation. That's
Mhm.
micro meditations.
Mhm.
That is living within that world. And we know that that is an enormously healthy thing to do for us adults with ADHD, is to be contemplative, slow down,
Mhm.
appreciate the moment. And I'm doing that constantly. And I think it's something that, yeah, so I super appreciate what you're getting out there for folks to talk about and to understand things.
I appreciate that. I have to share with you too that I get up really early because I've got a
Mhm.
million things racing through my mind. Thankfully, I'm pretty good at sleeping through the night. I would call
Mhm.
that pretty fortunate. But I have started to go down into the family room, not turn anything on, not get onto the
Good.
phone, just
Yes.
be, which is a
Yes.
really uncomfortable thing
Yes.
for someone who's I've got to be productive
Yes.
all the time, but it is I'm awareness. I mean, I think that's another great reason to understand ADHD. It's the awareness of,
Yep.
or the, I know I'm going to forget this, so let me put something in place, or even especially like the visual. I deal with
Mhm.
a lot as a senior move manager and home organizer. I see a lot of the piles of clutter,
Oh, sure, sure.
right? And now it's like this is because I'm afraid if I don't keep it out, I won't remember it. And so it's like, what are the tools for that? So
Right.
as you can imagine, I could go on and on talking about myself, but it is not about me. This is about having you on. So first of all, I want you to share with our audience how they can find you, and then any last
Mhm.
piece of advice that you'd like to share.
Well, everyone can find me at jamesochoa.com. So I'm a fortunate one who owns my name. And so all of my website there has a lot of information about how to interact with me. One of the things I do that I appreciate is I still offer a 20-minute free Zoom interview with me to kind
Mm,
of get an understanding on where to go. I started doing this about 2 or 3 years ago. Even as an expert and as a clinician of doing this many decades of work, certainly have plenty of folks enjoying working with. But I'm happy to do Zoom interviews to help people understand where to go or how I might be able to help them. So, but yes, I have something called ADHD Town Hall, which is a 6 week webinar once a year. I have a Living Well with ADHD conference every fall. So I do two of those things every year to give people information about my theoretical orientation and how to live with this powerfully. And so, getting connected to me through my jamesochoa.com website. And I'm now working certainly also with, I've started something very interesting, Jamie, year-long agreements with individuals because I really want to make a difference for folks who can really stick with it and really stay with it from an intensivity point of view of getting things done and really changing things. I'm calling it my transformation transcendence kind of work. But those kind of things, you really lean into what makes a difference for folks in their lives. And I want someone to be a better expert on themselves. That's really what we're after. Because I'm not here to gain clients for retirement, as I would say. I want you to learn better about yourself and get moving with your life. So I want people to move through my directive, action oriented kind of work.
mm.
I thread mentoring, coaching, and counseling together as a three-threaded rope to really help people understand who they are. But they can find all my material on jamesochoa.com. I've got a lot of things there on my website as resource and information.
That is great. By the way, I am one of those people who does not own my domain name for my name. I tried to get
Oh,
jamieshapiro.com
yeah.
and it was not available. So I am jamieshapiro.me. But
Oh, nice.
I think that's perfect. I do want to
I
spell
do too. I do too.
for anybody who is listening and is not watching this on YouTube. It's so Ochoa is Ochoa.
HOA. Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
James Ochoa. So
James Ochoa.
any parting words for our listeners?
I think the key to all of people with ADHD is to look for things that are time stopping in your life, things that hold a passionate connection for you, and to continue to follow those in a way that are meaningful. So if you're doing a body of work or you're in a job or a career that may not be exactly your passion, that's fine. Create something that is your passion that stops time that you can always touch because that's, I think, feeds us from the ADHD spectrum. And the other one, as I was saying earlier, is really mining the gems of your life history, pausing, slowing down to appreciate what is all around you. And as you were saying earlier, speak kindly to yourself. And when you have a negative or a difficult thought about who you are, just counteract it with at least one that is on the other side of the fence. So that counteraction can be very, very helpful. But I just want people with ADHD to understand, hang in there and stay in there with who you are. You can and will and continue to make a difference.
I love it. I love it. Well, I always end my podcast just saying that, it is never too late to make the rest of your life the best of your life. Nice. And I love this interview. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you so much, Jami.
Thank you for listening. And as I shared before the pause, please like this. I need the validation, but I also need people to hear this message, because that was what I wanted to say. Our society is, and I'm so glad you said conscious aging, because our society is so anti-aging. Yes, we sell products to anti-aging. I'm a 21-year cancer survivor. I don't want to anti-age, right?
No.
I want to age. So. Right. And, just like ADHD is, a lot of us are given in society kind of brushed aside or, whatever. And that is exactly what happens in aging.
I know. It's so sad. It's really sad.
So I'm on a mission to change
that. Good. I'm glad you are. I'm glad this podcast, and great name for the podcast. It's an immediate catcher.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
The opinions expressed on Grandma Has ADHD podcast are those of our guests and hosts and are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content discussed in this episode is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental health concern. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of Grandma Has ADHD do not assume any liability for the content of this podcast. Listen at your own discretion.